Hello and a warm welcome to our webinar. Today we are talking about network access control in industrial networks. Our agenda is pretty filled. For example, we will show you use cases how macmon NAC can provide industrial network security. My name is Silvia Günther. I'm a marketing manager at macmon Secure, and I will guide you through this webinar. If you have any questions, please put them into the chat. After the presentation, we're gonna answer your questions. We record this webinar today and you will receive the link to the recording in a couple of days. So there are two great speakers by my side today, and I would like to introduce Professor Dr. Tobias Herr from the CTO office of Belden and from the University of Esslingen. There he is working in the Department of IT Security and Networking. And I say hello, Tobias. Nice that you are here.
Hello, thank you for having me.
And I would also like to introduce Jochen Völgraf. He is Product Manager of macmon NAC. Hi, Jochen. I'm glad you are here as well.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, Jochen is going to show us the use cases of macmon NAC in industrial networks. But before that, I'd like to hand over to Tobias for a short overview of Belden and the challenges in OT security.
Thank you very much. We're not going to do an in-depth overview of Belden because I don't think that's too interesting for everyone. But as a brief orientation for you, Belden is a company that owns several other companies. Belden buys other companies that fit its portfolio, and it's really focused on certain areas: industrial automation solutions, smart buildings, and also broadband and 5G. And we're talking here about the area with industrial automation. So we have products in the area of, for example, mass transit or energy production and distribution, water and wastewater, very diverse customer base. And especially with these industrial customers, of course, we also have industrial automation solutions and production. We, of course, also face the challenges regarding security and compliance, and it's a kind of regulated area where people are operating here. And this is our core competency to provide solutions in hardware and software for these companies. Yeah, we have a very broad portfolio. So if you look at the bottom part of this slide, you see it starts with cables and connectors. We have I/O modules, we have communication devices, switches, firewalls, access points, routers, of course, and also if we move on to the right-hand side, we see their software solutions like our network orchestration and management suite. We do have cloud solutions for local cloud and global cloud services, and also macmon NAC software solutions for IT security. And we, of course, try to provide this portfolio not just as a bunch of different things, but we try to integrate that and create solutions that make it easier for our customers to run their critical services. Of course, when we talk about industrial automation and industry, we have customers in this area. So if you look at this slide with certain of our reference customers, you see that they're quite big companies using our products, using our networking products, using our software and security products. And of course, even some of these companies are not just customers of, for example, the Hirschmann brand. That's the part of Belden that I work for, but also the macmon brand. And so we do have an intersection of customers employing our hardware and our software and like working with the complete solution. If we look at industrial applications and industrial plants, the landscape is quite diverse. So we have quite many different customers that, like, if you look at them, you can barely compare them. But all of these customers have certain requirements in common. So if you want to successfully run an industrial application, especially when it comes to IT security and securing an industrial application, there are certain things that everyone wants. For example, visibility, knowing what's happening in your network, understanding your network, because these networks are often quite complex, heterogeneous. You have newer devices, older devices, you extend these networks over time. And so visibility in what's going on in the network is a key factor for securing and efficiently running the network. A second requirement we always face is control, because just knowing what's in your network will not help you to solve the problems in your network. And so you need to be able to efficiently react on deviations from your typical scenario, and you need to be able to contain threats. You need to be able to deal with threats, and so control is a very important factor here. Whilst visibility and control are good for security, a thing that is typically not so good for security is when things that revolve around security are inefficient. So despite adding additional security solutions, enabling security features, things still need to run smoothly, and people need to be able to focus on their core competency, which is often either transportation or production or whatever. So the core competency is the focus of the company, and so things need to stay efficient, and that's why a security solution must be efficient in order to be accepted. And finally, last requirement, very important requirement nowadays, there is no real one-size-fits-all solution that covers all aspects of IT security in an OT plant today. And so we always operate in scenarios where there are already established tools or there are other tools than our solutions. And so interoperability is a key requirement if you want to successfully run an OT security solution, or if you even want to run a OT network today. And of course, like when we talk about security, we gotta have a slide that shows when things go wrong. And I probably don't need to tell you the threats for secure operation of an industrial plant today, but still it's always a good idea to reflect like how severe the problems can be. And if you think back in time, there was an incident, ransomware incident at Maersk 2017, and the result was that Maersk is a large logistics company that 10,000s of clients and servers had to be reinstalled. Containers could not be shipped, could not be unloaded, and the infection of the company was so severe that it really took a long time until they were operational again. Shortly after, right here around the corner, like if I look out of the window here in Esslingen, I can almost see the buildings of the company. It's just on the hill. Is Pilz. That's a case that's very well known in Germany because Mr. Pilz is not holding back with details, because he says, okay, well, people should know what's happening and how things happen so that they can prepare. And so the whole production was down for an extended time. People were back to walking around with pen and paper to actually be able to produce and deliver things. And now you may think this may be a thing of the past, so 2017 and 2019, that seems like it's a very dated things. Just this spring, we had a similar incident at Varta, a large battery producer, also here in Germany, and they were also struck by ransomware. So this is not a thing that is out of fashion today. On the contrary, it's even more common than ever.
Okay, thank you, Tobias, for this short introduction to our topic today. But now it's our audience turn. We've got a poll for you, and we like to know from you, what links do you have to NAC in IT and OT networks? I stored the poll for you, and you can vote. This is a question with multiple answers. That means you can click one or more answers. And the answers are: we run an IT network, we run an OT network, we already use NAC in the IT network, we already use NAC in the OT network, or you are not involved in the operation of a network. So I can see our audience is still voting, and therefore I will wait some seconds, a few seconds, and I'm very curious what the results are. And Tobias, what do you expect?
Well, from past experience, and we already had similar seminars in the past, I would say many people here run an OT network or IT network. But in the past, we've seen that more people seem to be using network access control in the IT network than in the OT network. And I'm not quite sure how it will turn out this time, but last time I already said it's very surprising because NAC, network access control, is a really good fit for OT networks and can really be quite beneficial and used efficiently in OT networks. And so, yeah, let's see if things have changed since the last time we did this. And if we have more NAC in OT or network access control in OT networks, we'll see.
Okay, I think the result is ready now and can close the poll. And I will share the results. So as you can see, and 55% of our audience run an IT network. I think this is similar, the same result than in the last year, in our last webinar. And 31% run an OT network. 62% run or already use NAC in the IT network, and 26% already use NAC in the OT network. So 18% of our audience are not involved in the operation of any network. But I think today the answer use NAC in the OT network is quite interesting, isn't it, Tobias?
Yeah, definitely. Like it comes a little bit from history. So things in OT tend to be sometimes a little bit slower than in the IT world. But still, I think like 26%, that means we have roughly 74% that could benefit from network access control in the OT network. And so I guess we might want to talk about the benefits and the use of network access control in OT networks.
Okay, therefore I hide the results and I hand over back to Tobias with the slides.
Okay, so maybe back to the question, why do people run network access control in IT networks and not so much in OT networks? And that could be because IT networks are a little bit different than OT networks. And these differences also pose certain challenges for network access control. And so if you successfully want to apply network access control, you need to know these challenges and need to have a network access control solution that can deal with these challenges. And the most obvious difference is the network structure. Like in OT networks, we often have large flat networks. People don't want to renumber hosts to put them into a hierarchy. Sometimes we do have very deep hierarchy if we have network segmentations, much deeper hierarchies than in the IT world. We also have kind of strange topologies like lines and daisy chainings, rings, and so whatever network access control solution you employ, it sometimes has to cater for those.
Yeah, that's why NAC is a good fit from macmon because we fit into heterogeneous networks, so we really don't depend on the vendor and work with all those seamlessly, and have even possibility to work in mixed networks, like different technologies if you want. So this is really no problem, and fits with us.
Okay, second big difference is like performance. And now we need to talk a little bit about which IT network we would compare this. So of course, in the data center, or if you're really running a live operation in your IT network, performance is very important, and also availability. But for the typical office environment, campus network, people are definitely annoyed if things are slow or don't work well. But in the OT world, it often means your industrial process stops. your train is not going, your production stops, and it needs to, sometimes you have steps that really take long to get it running again. And so you need to work in a situation where you don't disrupt things, and network access control is made for disrupting things, so it may seem like it's not a good fit here, but well, we'll see how that works out.
Yeah, so on the one hand, you need, of course, standards and protocols that don't put pressure on the network, sure. And the other thing is, of course, that you need to be so flexible to react only on these places where you want it to, and be able to work differently in different situations. And yeah, all of that is possible, from notifications to enforcement in different ways, to notify not only people but other solutions as well. So yeah, it fits performance very well because of all of that.
And another challenge, and that's really a big challenge, is the long lifetime of industrial plants and industrial applications. And I would say the reluctance to invest additional money if it's not needed, because you need to amortize the systems. You have just assume you have something like a water and wastewater facility or power distribution. You want these things to just run. No one says, hey, I want the newest shiny hardware in there. I want the newest and shiny software in there. You basically install it once and it should run for a very long time. On the other hand, like in the IT world, we have much shorter like life cycles in products, but also in software products. So many vendors show up with very fancy and good security solutions. Probably you don't want to use them in the OT world.
And this is where macmon again fits in very well, because we have customers for 20 years, and we have we've always find network infrastructure that is very legacy, that is manageable but not really up to date, let's say like that, just put it like that. And so we still find manufacturers that don't even exist anymore, and we can still and will work with them. And yeah, that's a good fit for Belden, because Belden, as an OT manufacturer as well, is in need of such a solution that works with old or legacy, let's say legacy hardware in all of those spaces, infrastructure and endpoints as well.
So Jochen, you told me like you have very old devices. How old are the oldest devices that you support?
I can't really tell. I would say around the 2000s is probably a good fit. I think for example, on things like 3Com, something like that, I know exactly that they still work and that we got that at specific customers still, right? They were achieved and acquired from company, but yeah, stuff like that, or Nortel, if you remember those, all of that is still working.
Okay. Okay, so now back to the question, like, why isn't that a good fit, NAC a good fit for OT networks? And it can do several things for you. The first thing is network hardening. So you can reduce the areas where an attacker can actually do attacks. And this is both for on-site attacks. So sometimes we have customers with remote sites where there is no one, they just work, like power distribution, for example, and you still want to know that no one can just go there and attach devices or reattach devices. But it also works for things like containing attacks from the outside, because if you have an infected system, you want to be able to deal with that system, even if you're not concerned with the local security and someone coming to the site and attaching something. It's still important that you can contain attacks. And also, like with NAC, you can detect and also prevent quite many physical attack vectors that are really hard to detect with other or protect with other solutions. We said visibility is quite important. So like before, we had four different things that matter, like visibility and control was one of them. Yeah? And of course, if you run a network access control solution, it needs to know what's on the device, on the network. Otherwise, it can't run. And so we can simply assemble lists of devices. Where are they attached? You can understand your topology much better. you can detect deviations, devices going up and down, devices being attached to different places. So you get a lot of visibility and can check whether things are the way you would like them to be. We also said efficiency and interoperability are important, and a good network access control solution can certainly help by providing automated processes for admitting devices to the network, dealing with devices that are not compliant anymore, dealing with situations that you may foresee so that you can automate them, because, for example, macmon NAC is rule-driven and event-driven. You can prepare events and then react to events, and you don't really need to do that as the administrator, but it can happen automatically. And finally, very importantly, like with additional compliance requirements that we have in the industrial space, you also need to have a solution that ensures and also tells you, if it's not the case, that your plant is compliant at all time. And since network access control provides you the visibility and the control, that's also a mechanism to ensure compliance. So now, maybe this whole network access control thing is really old. So if I remember, like my first courses that I was teaching here at the university, and even before that, people were saying, hey, network access control, that's a solved problem. We have 802.1x, we have radius, we can precisely tell which devices should be on the network or shouldn't be on the network. And when I then continued to work for Hirschmann, I was kind of surprised that although it's in all of our switches, we do have that. No one likes to use it by itself, simply because when you try to do a pure 802.1x based network access control, and you can do that, it comes for free essentially, you have lots of follow-up problems. It's really complex in the integration of devices. So if you have devices that don't speak 802.1x, it's hard to integrate them securely. Essentially, what you do is you do a lot of hole punching into your NAC by doing MAC bypass. It's really time consuming as well, because you have very little mechanisms that make it easy for you to create groups, to integrate devices into the network, to learn devices automatically. You have almost no visibility because you have very little knowledge about the topology. And you have a lot of like remaining and residual risks when you start to open your system, because it just doesn't work with all the legacy devices. And so I always say, okay, that pure 802.1x based network access control solution, that's like NAC from hell, network access control from hell. You can do it, but you don't want to do it. And so the question is, what do you need to change in order to make it a little bit better?
Yeah, and over the years, what we really found is the legacy infrastructure devices. Sometimes they don't even support radius at all. So how do you want to, how do you want to fix that? How do you want to protect that? So, and we have solutions for that as well.
And so the situation is typically you talk about NAC with people, and people say, oh, NAC, no, we don't do that. It's so complicated. We're not going to do it. Okay, and so the question is, like, if you want to have a really good solution, it needs to not just kick devices out of the network or not admit devices to the network, but it needs to do some other things, some soft things. And it needs to be user-friendly, it needs to be efficient, and it needs to be compatible. And that's essentially the thing that macmon brings to the table. It bridges the gap between a 802.1x based NAC, which is hard to operate, and a usable network access control solution that you really want to have. And I think on the next slides, Jochen has some features and use cases for us to illustrate for you how this user-friendliness, efficiency, and compatibility is achieved.
Okay. So then let's go into some of those key features that we provide, and I try to make it easy for you. So I will not go into detail in every of those bullet points, but in general, when you think about NAC, it is about those standard scenarios like preventing especially unknown endpoints to get access from on your network, to detect when endpoints that you think you know that they might have been spoofed, and for those endpoints that you know, that you do a logical zoning to limit the attack parameter, or to just make your network more stable, more efficient, more performant. And to detect as well, so this is not really something NAC related, but if you do any misconfiguration in your network, surely, especially in OT networks, you need to know about that, right? If you do it in an IT network, you do misconfiguration. Okay, there are some people that can't access, I don't know, the internet, but in OT networks, there are really productions that might not run, and for that, you need to be, able to detect those and maybe even prevent these misconfiguration before they even happen. So if we talk about control again that we mentioned before, we provide two concepts, two let's say technology approaches. One is like a pre-connect NAC, which means that before you really get access to the network, you will get to identify it some way. This is what we discussed earlier in terms of 802.1x and MAC-based authentication. So everything that is in some way radius-based, and it has its benefits and it has its disadvantages. And this comes especially when you think about any misconfiguration in the network in general, and the NAC service is not reachable anymore. So with pre-connect NAC, this is something you really need to think about. And for OT networks, that's a crucial thing. So that's why you have a different possible way to do that. And this would be our post-connect NAC, which means that you can connect there and we will monitor your network. And then depending on what we see there, we will change the configuration if you want it, right? You don't need to, but at least we will inform you. At least if you say, hey, please do something, we will do that. And it will not interfere with your production in case of any misconfiguration in routing, firewalling, service breakdown, whatever. Your production will go on. And this is for OT networks. That's, like I said, it's a crucial thing. And you have ways to do that very easily. For both of those approaches, we provide a dynamic set of rules, which means that in general, you see down here, you don't even need to build rules. You just activate NAC where you want it, and it can be per port, per switch. So test it out very easily without any interference. And all the rules that are built in already, they do, like we said here, 95% of all use cases that happen in customers' environments, they are solved with those already and by using endpoint groups.
That's actually something that I when I first saw macmon, was really surprised how well the rule set and the rule like engine is made. So it's really easy to add additional rules. You don't have to, yeah. But like if you need certain rules, it's not that you need to be a specialist to do that. So it really guides you through the process. It has things like explanations. There's a really good manual. It's really good to use, and it's really powerful. I was really surprised that it's so good.
Yeah, in general, you can really say you don't have real control if you don't go down to the port, right? So what's happening on the last few ports on the last switch? So network access control really delivers this, and in the end, you can, again, as we said before, you can really decide on, do you want to do just notification? Do you want to exclude only things that you don't know? Or do you want to do even more, like moving endpoints that you know of, independent where they are connected? And the configuration can be done automatically. You can decide how far you really want to go, and we will show that in the end, once again, to get a deeper understanding for you. So when we talk about control further, it means like, okay, how do we do that, and how do we make it compatible? And we are using standards that are very well known. We set radius 802.1x as one part to do that with username authentication, computer name authentication with passwords or certificates, MAC-based authentication with radius as well, of course. But as well, for the post-connect NAC, what you can do is you use SNMP, you use any REST API and so on. But if you think about SNMP, this is something that is with us for years, not only 20 years, even longer. And you find those on almost any switch. And that's why it is very easily compatible with legacy, with right now up-to-date hardware, but for the future as well. So yeah, that's good things to do, and they are always limiting, not limiting, just use a limited amount of data in your network as well. And we do that for different manufacturers. I can't even think about of any where it's not possible with. So if you have any manufacturer, I'm pretty sure it works out of the box really, really easily. If we think about interoperability again, what we provide here again is using REST APIs not only for reading out data from your infrastructure, but to communicate with other tools as well, or get data from other tools. So we will talk about this as well again later a little. So we are not a standalone solution. We really work well with different manufacturers all over the world, and not only manufacturers of infrastructure, but software as well, surely. And for getting more information from endpoints, what we do is we use, for example, certificates from endpoints to really identify those, or to use the open ports that endpoints are using. And for the future, maybe that's very interesting, we will provide OT protocols as well to communicate directly with endpoints if you want that, and to get really information out of that you normally couldn't get that easily.
So the last point is interesting, I guess, right? Because, well, why do we do that? So we do have these legacy devices. They don't talk 802.1x, can't authenticate themselves. They're sitting on the network. You have to let them into the network, otherwise they're not going to work. And now you can at least make sure, hey, they run a web server and have an SSL certificate, or they have an SSH configuration that you can use to connect to. They have a host key. And now you're using these things that are not exactly made for host identification in a NAC scenario, but we can still use them and check, is this really the device it's supposed to be, which makes the MAC bypass thing that I was frowning upon so much before, it makes it really usable, because you have compensating security measures suddenly.
Yeah, so you can really good prevent spoofing of any kind because you're using all of those technologies one by one or together, depends on your endpoints, and it can be done for different endpoints differently as well. And then when we go on and talk about visibility, what we provide here as well is, for example, we can show you really what is connected where, when, how long, and how it moved in any way through your network. And of course, we give you overviews of the general, let's say, coverage maybe of your network. So how many endpoints are in general, and from what time to what time in your network, over the whole network, or per specific departments, groups, and how you want to see that, to really get an overview and understanding of how your network really behaves from day to day. And additionally, we show you how ports, independent of the manufacturer again, how they are configured, how are they used, and we can maybe even show you, not maybe, we can show you even how many ports are open in specific campus areas and so on, or factory parts. And how are they used? So what about the bandwidth is that are used for that stuff? And then while we take a look at your network anyways, we provide information about how are those connected. So you can really see not only where are endpoints connected, so how is your infrastructure configured and connected, so you really see problems that occur even in a graphical overview. Okay, where does it happen, and where do I need to do, let's say, my troubleshooting if really something happens, or if I just want to change something for the future, I can plan based on those information that you might not get that easily for every from any other tool. And yeah, on top of that, what we provide as well is a compliance overview. So we can get from third-party integrations, from us ourselves, information about endpoints to say, okay, is there malware somewhere? Is there something not up to date anymore, and we should do something about it? And you see that very easily in macmon. Yeah, you have that in a very easy report. You can get notifications for you for SIEM solutions and have all of that. But of course, if you want to, you can enforce specific measurements as well, like putting endpoints into quarantine if you want to. Again, optional, but you could do it. And then maybe one last part for this section, we have the possibility to predict specific errors or give you information about those. And normally these are very event-based. So for everything we see or do in your network, we create events. And for example, if we detect duplicate IP assignments, we got that a lot in the past 10 years. I would say in the past 10 years it's quite fitting. From factories that, yeah, there's a service technician coming in, changes something, and oh, there's an IP address that is used twice, and they search for problems, and we could tell them just right away. And same thing for compliance changes or for failures in your network, or even how to learn endpoints is very easy. And we have different approaches to do that, from very manual ways to very automated ways. And for everybody, there's things you could do. And in the use cases we give you in a few seconds, we will get into one of those as well to showcase that. And yeah, very, very necessary is, especially within the night, that it is possible to do all of those specific tasks without shift workers to understand what's happening. It just needs to work, and this is working with our automatisms very easily. And of course, like I said before, at some points we'll need to be flexible as a solution to, at some points, react on others, just notify, and yeah, maybe even on the same position, do it differently based on specific other factors. And then all of that is possible. And this is what you should take away from this slide here. Then we have another poll for you.
Yes, thank you, Jochen. So we already know what NAC can do in OT networks in general. We like to know from our audience to know what are the typical OT network management tasks in their industrial network. So we have got a poll, and I will start the poll, and you can choose your answer. This is also a multiple choice answer. That means you can click one or more. Is it, for example, the replacement of network equipment and or temporary admission of subcontractors to the network, or reconfiguration of the network during maintenance windows, and or granting and revoking employee network access, and or keeping network device firmware up to date? And the viewers are voting. And yeah, I'd like to ask Jochen, what do you think is the typical OT network management task? What is the preferred answer?
I think the very crucial one is replacement of network equipment, really. I think everybody fears that it happens without any notification, without any recognizing of that. And then time goes by until you really find the problem and solve it. So in my opinion, replacement of network equipment might become the most voted one. I'm not sure.
Let's see.
It's actually something I don't hope as a manufacturer of network equipment. I would hope that you don't have to replace it that often, but if you have to replace it, it's really bad.
I think that's what I meant. So in terms of, you're right. We talked about typical. So yeah, it shouldn't be typical. But as I said, I think it's the one you most fear.
Don't influence our customer's voice.
Sorry.
Because they are still voting. But I can close the poll now and share the results. And yeah, you are not really on the right way. It is 50% reconfiguration of the network during maintenance windows, and also 50% granting and revoking employee network access. And oh, I can see 53% keeping network device firmware up to date. Yes, and I think all network management tasks are related to NAC. NAC can simplify the task, but also can make them a little bit more complicated. And I think for a better understanding on how to simplify the tricky aspects, we would go deep dive into the use cases, or Jochen, and I will hand over to you. But I think we need to rush a little bit because we have 20 minutes left in this webinar.
Yes, we will try that. So I missed out the typical task. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, let's talk about a little bit about a few use cases that really happen as we just queried or polled from you. So first, Tobias might say something, and I would.
That's a case where we were talking about, like, the faulty device replacement. The device fails in the middle of the night shift. There's no administrator on site. You don't want to be called just to get there and to replace it. And now we have the challenge to integrate the new device where the old device was. And like it's a process that always works and has always worked. And every device manager has some mechanism to do that. But now we introduce network access control, and we don't want any new devices on the network. And now we need to make sure that this smooth replacement of faulty devices still works in the face of network access control without you as the administrator being on site in the middle of the night making it happen.
Exactly. So it needs to be quick and uncomplicated to do that. And one way to do that would be, for example, a learning port. And the learning port is something that we can configure in our software and could say, okay, if you connect something in a specific environment where somebody might be in the area, like supervise it, whatever, to announce new endpoints, new network hardware, just by connecting it and then bringing it into the right parts of the network, where you can just connect it afterwards as an authorized and known new device. So very easy and very, very often used in IT and OT. So even IT is using that quite a lot.
And so you put the learning port into a closed cabinet, locked and whatever. And so you just need to take care of who has the key, which is much easier than providing access to the network access control solution, administration and stuff.
Yeah,
excellent.
Exactly.
Yeah, second thing that we often get as a network manufacturer, network device manufacturer, is the requirement for a maintenance port. The maintenance port means we have like a cell that produces something or does something, and there should be a port where you can easily connect to the network. But that port, of course, should not be wide open, but it needs to be controlled. So you need to be able to say, okay, I've got a subcontractor coming on site today, or maybe today and tomorrow, and you need to provide access to that subcontractor, to that specific maintenance port, not to the whole site, but only to the port of that machine or only to the port of that cell. And of course, that needs to work efficiently again, and it should not involve the network administrator, because you've got other things to do than enabling and disabling the access of the subcontractors, if there are many of those.
Yeah, one way to do that is to give just temporary access, so time-bombed, and only to those specific network areas. What you could use for that is, we did that a lot, to use a guest or self-service portal to get access once you can do it by voucher, or you can do it by service account. And that based on really that cell, that machine, if you want. So very, very easily. And again, you don't need to be a system administrator or a network administrator. You can do it even as a receptionist or as somebody at the entrance of the factory that just gives out the predefined vouchers, or create one, because you can just do easily sponsoring with a GUI that is very fitting to only that task. So it's not complex, it's not overwhelming. You can just easily do that, and with that you have that covered as well.
So it's for a specific cell, right? It's not just for the whole plant. It's not like a guest network in the hotel. It's much more specific to a specific cell or task.
Exactly.
Okay, so many of you said like maintaining or changing the network infrastructure during maintenance windows is a regular task. And of course, we don't want the network to change while it's not in some kind of maintenance window. So we want to lock down the network so it's immutable. No one can add devices to the network. You don't have any weird stuff happening in the network. It's like, it's ossified, it's solid. But during the maintenance window, you want maximum freedom for people reconfiguring the whole thing. You want people to come in with their like maintenance notebooks to program things, to change things. You want people to attach analysis devices, and really you want the network to be as soft as possible. Not the whole network, maybe just a cell. But you want it to be very, very easy. And again, we want it to be easy only during the maintenance window and not afterwards.
Yes, and for that, what you could do, for example, is that you bring out some rules that can be activated or deactivated in a specific time frame, and it's really easy like that. So while normally NAC would take effect, at that time it wouldn't. And not only it wouldn't do, it can even learn all those different changes, changing VLANs, changing endpoints in specific areas. All of that can be learned automatically. And then when you're done with your maintenance, just one click and you activate again the NAC enforcement and NAC notification. So it is even about, if you wouldn't enforce NAC in a way of really doing something, those notifications, of course, of the maintenance time, you don't need those as well. So it takes effect on both.
Okay, another task that was highly ranked, I think, was admitting new colleagues, new workers to the site, removing workers from the site. And of course, that only can be done efficiently if you can do it centrally. And the best case probably would be if you don't do it at all, but let it be done, for example, by the HR department. So how can we do that?
So it is possible for all of those infrastructure devices or other systems to do a central authentication process. And this, of course, can connect to your Active Directory, to other central databases. And it means that if you do a initial configuration of course, the systems where you want to do that, you can authorize and deny as well centrally who can access what and how. And again, this is very easily done. So if we stay with the example of Active Directory, so if, like Tobias said, if you create a new user, put him into a specific group, yes, he's a new network admin without doing anything else. He has access everywhere in your network for what you expect him to have access to. And if you go different ways with one of your colleagues in the future, it might be wise to exactly do the other way around, to give in 1 second, take away the access to different systems. Normally, I think nothing would happen, but in general, it is always good to be secure, and secure means you only give access to those guys and those people and those machines that you trust. And this is what NAC is doing, not only for NAC enforcement in general, but for administrative access as well.
So finally, and I think this was the top ranked answer, is like keeping the devices up to date. And of course, in regulated environments, it's not an option to do that. You need to do that. And even there, NAC can help a little bit.
Yeah, so for example, we can read out from all those infrastructure devices, which firmware are they using, what models are they, and we will provide that for the future for endpoints as well. We do it in some cases already, but especially for OT networks with the integration of different protocols in the future, we will give you a good overview of what you have in your network and firmware versions and so on of those as well, so that you can have in one central solution the overview of everything. And yeah, all my PLCs, are they on the same level? Is there something that is not fitting there? And surely, again, with the policies and everything that we have here, you can notify yourself as well if you want to know when something is connected that is not compliant to your values of firmware versions. So yeah, that's possible as well. And then maybe to give you again a little information about how you can integrate NAC and how you can approach that. So for example, again, and these are the 4 steps that we see here right now, we can integrate NAC in different stages, and every stage gives you more capabilities, how to inform or do something. And you can start normally, or you will start normally, with a visibility and monitoring of your network. And this is not only that you need to do it in your edge departments or edge switches and so on. You can go anywhere. You can go even when you have a data center somewhere and so on. You can go there, even if you won't enforce any NAC at any time. It gives you that overview, and knowledge or knowing what's happening in your network is security as well. So in the end, even if you don't enforce anything, your security was increased already. If you say, okay, I know what's in my network and I want to enforce now in some way that something that is not known to me, shouldn't take shouldn't have any access, you go to the next step. Maybe if you want to, a week later, a month later, or even whenever you are ready, you can say, okay, now I will go with NAC, and you enforce stuff. And then you can go, at some point you're saying, okay, I'm very familiar with everything, it's good. Now I want to get some compliance monitoring on top. I want to see, we just talked about versions and so on. I want to see if something is not as I normally expect it to be, because these are our compliance rules. You go with monitoring first, and you can take a look, okay, how would macmon and all the other tools connected would see your network endpoints in terms of compliance. And then when you say, okay, I'm very well familiar with my network in terms of compliance as well, now I want to really do something about it. So if something is not in the level I say, it was not updated within the last, let's go high, last year, then you could do something. Send out a notification. Sure, that's something you might do before as well. But maybe you could even put it into quarantine, especially if you find anywhere you might want to do that. So you can do that, but you don't need to, and you go step by step when you're ready. So to give you, again, a little overview just quickly, what we do for IT, OT, IoT, and IoT networks is we are very compatible with all that is out there. We use standards to do that. We use agentless communication with endpoints to enforce spoofing detection and so on. We don't need a rip and replace mentality. We are vendor agnostic, so we work with big players, with OT-specific vendors, and everything around that. And we're very flexible in terms of authentication, authorization, not only for NAC enforcement, but for administrative access as well, and give you the possibility to use the standards. It is very easy. Just use the standard rules and you're good, or go deeper to say, okay, there are scenarios where I want to still change something other way around, send out notifications differently. All of that is possible. And it's easy to use in terms of we provide a very easy GUI. Everybody sees their data very easily in seconds. We provide the possibility to implement VLAN concepts or enhance those. And yeah, automatically do something about the threats that we see in your network. And maybe we dare, or maybe our customers dare, at least that was why we're here all the time, that we are the easiest next solution to implement. So it just takes hours to days, depending on your network. And yeah, and we are very competitive in terms of pricing as well. We are doing that Mac-based, for example. So even if your network is bigger, it is very easy to do that. And yeah, as we said, we are very easy to implement. So it's very cost and effort saving. And then maybe to go one step further, we talked about other solutions we are working with. We just give you a glimpse here on specific manufacturers we do that with. And one we want to point out here, which is, for example, Rebo, which is a visibility tool that passively takes a look at your network and works perfectly with macmon in terms of giving you more information. You exactly know what is where in your network, and even react to things that Rebo can detect. And but in general, if those solutions and the others that we have are not fitting into your needs because you don't have it in use or you don't plan to use it, everything you have in use normally can be connected as well. And for those, we have things like radius proxy, SAML, or REST API communication. And the REST API communication, like we said before, is inbound, outbound. So we can get data, we can give data. And with that, we are well known to work with asset management, with CM solutions, with compliance in general, every solution that does anything about compliance. And yeah, feel free to use it. And I think Tobias has some insights, some examples, some suggestions.
Well, I just wanna say I'm really excited for one of the interfaces of the macmon solution because it's so versatile, and I'm a little bit of a tinkerer, and so I really like that interface. And the interface is the REST HTTP REST interface, and now we have a rule-based system, event-based system that can react on things. Plus, we have a very versatile interface. And so if you really have special needs or special ideas that you want to do in your industrial network, you can really do that with the REST API. It's also very well documented. At the right-hand side, you can see part of the documentation. And just some examples of what you could do. For example, you can integrate network information, also compliance information, security information from the network access control system. For example, in your KPIs, in your dashboards that you have on your production floor. You can build things like light indicators. We already did that as well. So you can have different indicators for different states, for cells, for the whole network. And so it can really make it easy to visualize where things are happening, where things are wrong. You can send alerts to other systems if there's a change in the network, and then have automatic processes happening in other parts of your IT system. You can do lots of statistics, for example. And one thing that I really like is with a REST interface, you can easily interface also with your home, with a building automation, with your HVAC systems and so forth. For example, you can integrate smart locks, you can integrate door opener sensors, and then, for example, decide whether you want to activate some ports or not based on a key card or based on some key that someone punches into like the digit field. And that's a great thing about this REST API. You can really get creative and create solutions that make the life at the shop floor much more convenient, and your life as an administrator much easier.
Okay, thank you, Tobias. Thank you, Jochen. We should come to the conclusion. It's almost 5 p.m. at our time. So what did we learn today? Overall, we have seen that macmon NAC fits in OT security perfectly. We figured out that OT administrators can handle their management tasks in industrial networks with macmon. And we also learned that it is essential for an IT security concept to have NAC in place as well. And finally, Jochen has shown us that macmon is easy and flexible to use, so that everybody should be able to implement it. So please give us some more minutes for questions and for some recommendation, because we have a lot of questions in our chat. And I think I will pick random 2 of them. Maybe we can start with this question. A NAC solution can send a new device to either a quarantine situation or a protected VLAN, but considering we can have a need to replace a PLC or any industrial device, wouldn't the NAC isolate this new device from communicating to the running system? Isn't it a problem?
So this is, I think, the first use case that we had there. So like faulty device replacement or something like that. So with that use case, you can, or maybe that question came before we showed that. Yeah, so there are ways to do that very easily. Surely, if you say you want to prevent, so if you go that far that you say, okay, I want to really don't let in stuff that I don't know, there are easy ways to learn them. Like we said, maybe a learning port or other ways to do that. Can be combinations with asset management and so on. That's possible as well. So many customers, they do exactly those things, not only in OT, in IT as well, without any, let's say, more work in the daily practice.
Okay, a second question. At the end, it will be switches or routers where the end devices connect to. How do your macmon services get information on how the devices are using the connection for implementing post-connect NAC?
Yeah, so in general, we normally communicate with those, for example, switches via SNMP, via REST API, for some switches via Secure Shell and so on. That's very rarely, but it can be done as well. And after our monitoring shows us what is connected there, we will enforce it. We will enforce it based not only by what we see because of the switches, but maybe as well because of the communication that we see when we communicate, for example, with an endpoint, for example, like we said, with OT protocols like Profinet or Ethernet IP, or even by getting more information of something else. I think we shown before, for example, Greenbone. For example, what we could do is we see an endpoint, we say, hey, a vulnerability scanner, please check something, and then give us back the feedback or the result, not the feedback, the result, what it was, and then we decide on that. Okay, how do we want to handle that endpoint? But in general, the direct enforcement on the switches and so on will be done in post-connect NAC, normally via SNMP, REST APIs, and whatever management interfaces those systems deliver. But mostly those are the ones we will find.
Okay, thank you. So I think we should finish, and I can see that Tobias is already answering some question directly in the chat. So in the end, I like to recommend a few things from the marketing side. For example, I can recommend an interesting white paper. Maybe click to the next slide. Jochen, thank you. This is the white paper, Enhanced Security for Industrial Networks. This white paper presents a powerful way to implement a NAC concept consisting of macmon NAC and industrial Ethernet switches from Hirschmann. Here you can see the link for downloading or the QR code, but you will also get the link in our follow-up email. And secondly, I can recommend you our poster. It shows our 12 reasons for NAC in OT in a very simple and smart way. You can find the poster also on our website or in the follow-up email. So, and now we come to our final slide today. The contact details of the both speakers. you can find here the phone number or the email address. So if you have any further questions, please do not hesitate to contact them both. And yeah, I want to apologize for the minutes we extended this webinar, and I like to thank you all for your attention, for the interesting questions, and I like to thank to Jochen and Tobias for the interesting presentations, and I wish you all a good rest of the day. Goodbye.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye-bye.